Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings and welcome to the Sales Sense Reality Talk Show with your host, Mike Krause. Mike has sold over $100 million in sales and offers Fortune 500 strategies, tactics, and tools to sales professionals and business leaders. He created this show with one thing in mind, for sales professionals to share their secrets with each other. Join us every Wednesday at 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time, or sign up for updates on Mike's mailing list at salessensesolutions.com. Mike appreciates you listening and wishes you good luck on your next sales call.
Well, greetings. Mike Krause with Sales Sense Reality Talk Show. Hope your week is going well. I'm excited to have Jonna Martin. She's the president of Advance Me Associates, a business etiquette training and consulting firm, which we all probably need a little bit of help every now and then with that. I know I do. She's a respected professional with over 14 years of experience in the financial services industry. She specializes in trust and estate planning for high net worth clients at PNC Bank, Fleet Bank, and Merrill Lynch prior to launching her firm in 2001. Jonna graduated of Wesleyan College in Wellesley, Massachusetts, where she majored in political science, as it earned her the National Speakers Association Professional Speaker designation, which she's very proud of. Recently, she has addressed the Scholars Institute for the New Jersey Society of CPAs and is a presenter in the New Jersey Society of CPAs Convention in Atlantic City. Her professional articles have been published in the PICPA's newsletter, Pursuit, as well as regional newspapers, and available on her website at powerofimage.com. Her podcast series on business etiquette can be found on the New Jersey Society of CPA website. She is the past president of the National Association of Women Business Owners, Greater Rochester chapter. Corporate clients of Advance Me Associates include Bayer, Heinz, KPMG, Lee Height Harrison, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Unilever, and Xerox, Pepper University, Cornell University, Pittsburgh Tax School of Business, and University of Pittsburgh Law School. So, wow, impressive background, Jonna. So welcome, and thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you on as well. You know, sales is always about presenting yourself in a professional manner, and you've carved out quite a niche. Can you tell us a little bit more about your etiquette training and kind of the territory you cover, and a little bit more about your business?
Oh, absolutely. I guess it's probably a good idea to kind of link my background to how I got to where I am today to give a little bit better explanation. As you said, I spent 14 years in the financial services industry, and I was really lucky to be in corporate environments where I got to observe how the people around me were presenting themselves, and the people who were really successful I took note of, and I noted how they dressed, how they interacted, how they existed in that workplace, and really tried to emulate that in my career on the corporate side. And so when I decided to go out on my own and start my business, what I wanted to do was to teach people what I had been learning sort of as I went along, so that people maybe didn't have to spend as much time observing and implementing, but could actually learn those skills and use those tools right away. And that's something that they never taught me at Wellesley College, which was a great school, but we were taught to be smart and strong and go out and, make our way, but never were taught the nuances. And so I started to teach people all of these soft skills and all of these things about professional image and protocol and dining etiquette and business etiquette that make an enormous amount of difference in anybody's career. And I started that, as you said, in 2001, so it's been about 9 years now that I've been doing it.
That's excellent background there. And I know that it's important because we've all been at that dinner meeting or lunch meeting, and that person is not polished. I guess I would use that word. Maybe a stain on their tie or something that's leading them down the path. And there is that 3-second rule. I'm a big believer in Malcolm Gladwell and his book Blink, and it's intuitive repulsion. And getting that first image across is so critical in sales because people automatically start judging you. Do you find that to be true, or can you have not to put you on the spot, but a funny story about someone that sat down and kind of wasn't as polished?
You know what's interesting? First of all, I love Malcolm Gladwell and his research, and it lends itself to this whole idea of how important it is to present yourself right away. But I have to tell you, I gather stories every single time I speak, and not because I'm looking for them, but because people are dying to tell me about circumstances that they've experienced. So I have to tell you, I think probably an entire book's worth of stories that people have shared with me, and some definitely stand out. But in terms of the idea of a few seconds to make a first impression, absolutely. And I know that scares some people. It's kind of intimidating to think about that. But the good news is that if you do it right up front, you don't have to steer them in a different direction. And so if you don't make a great first impression, you can certainly overcome that. But the bad news is it takes you 10 times longer to do that than it does if you're just reinforcing a great impression to begin with. So I think that's cool. I don't know, Michael, are you still interested in hearing about some of my stories? Is that still on your agenda?
Oh, absolutely. If you have one. I mean, that's the best way to learn is by other people's mistakes sometimes. So,
all right,
yes, share with one.
I will tell you one that I just recently heard, actually, and it had to do with an interview. And I was presenting at a university, and the president of the university happened to be at the session I was presenting, which was great. And some of his staff was there as well. And they actually shared with me a story of interviewing a candidate for a very senior position in the administration. And all throughout the interview, he had a cold, and so he was blowing his nose, which, if you have to do that, okay. Not great, but okay. But the problem was he was discarding his used tissues on the floor beside his chair. And so when he walked out from the interview, there was an entire pile of tissues just lying there for them to clean up. I think that's about as bad as it gets.
That's amazing, and I guarantee to the listeners right now that people, they would think that wouldn't happen. Because
right.
When you state it, I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's so true. When I've interviewed other sales professionals, it is amazing to see, number one, they show up late. Number two, some of them dress totally inappropriate. I've had people show up in shorts and a T-shirt, I just don't get it.
It is amazing. And what a lot of times people will say to me, well, this is really great stuff for the younger audience, people who are just coming out of school. And I agree with that. I mean, I think that's an audience that I speak to very, very often. And those are people who I'm so happy to help, with their starting of their careers. But the reality is that there are issues at all levels. And I think that example that I just shared was somebody at a very, very high level looking for another job, that was at a high level. And so the assumption that everybody who's in business who has a vice president after their name knows all this stuff is absolutely not the case. And I hesitate to share that with people because I think I'm shattering some illusions. But the reality out there is exactly what you described, Mike. People are showing up in inappropriate clothing. They're behaving in a way that they don't even realize maybe is off-putting to the people that they're meeting with.
Absolutely. And I have so many stories myself. When I was working at a large bank, actually it was Chase, we hired a sales rep, and he was a go-getter, but he was always missing those couple key attributes of professionalism. And he was I inherited him as a sales rep, and he actually asked one of the tellers for money to get home because he was out of gas. So here we are in a professional setting. You can't get more professional than a bank, very straight-laced and white shirt. And he's going in there and soliciting other employees for money to put in his car. And it is kind of classic how people just behave sometimes. And I think everyone should take a few hours with you and learn a little bit more about how to behave in a professional setting. And you're right with the VPs. And I don't know if this stat is true, but it's over 60% of corporations have VP titles. So
right.
It's a large percentage out there that have, that VP title.
Right. And, the other thing is, and I think, it's intimidating to talk about, etiquette. And I think that word has a connotation that is a little bit unfortunate because people immediately think, oh, this is about the rules and, oh my gosh, and they get very self-conscious about it. And I try to let people know that my job is to really teach about what the rules are, but also about being comfortable enough to maybe even bend the rules if you need to in order to be yourself in the process. But knowing what's appropriate gives you that leeway. It's the unknown that's the issue. So if you don't really know, then you're in an insecure position when you're walking in the door. And I know a lot of people will tell me, I'm good except for when I have to meet somebody really important. And I love that because, first of all, we're all really important. And so there aren't people that you need to be, on your best behavior for. You should be on your best behavior all the time. So I think that's interesting. But second of all, being yourself is the most important part of the equation. And it's not just being your at-home, laying around the backyard best self. It's your best self on your best day that you should be projecting whenever you're out there, especially in a business setting, but even in a social setting. And that's what I try to give people, the confidence and the comfort to be able to be themselves, but be their very best selves.
Tell me a little bit more about, maybe share with the listeners some tips that you can give people if they're going on for an interview. And honestly, a sales call is an interview.
It is.
I can't stress that enough. Every time you meet someone new, it is an interview. So could you share your top couple of tips to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing is the thing that you brought up, which is about being on time. And there's nothing worse than a person who doesn't show up. Actually, even a few minutes early is great. But being punctual is the very first impression. A great handshake can make all the difference. Good eye contact. So your body language immediately projects who you are. So the way that you walk in the door, your handshake, your eye contact, all are going to communicate something. So I think those all have to be very strong. The other thing I suggest is that you don't carry all kinds of things with you on an interview or a sales call. You carry what's necessary so that you don't look overburdened with stuff. It's also scary for the person on the other side if they see you with a bag full of things that they feel that they're going to have to look at and there's all this pressure. So minimize, have a nice leather folio or a nice briefcase. Doesn't have to be leather, but it has to be at least nicely put together, not dirty, and definitely sending a good message. And then your clothing. Your clothing should be really well pressed. Doesn't have to be a suit. A lot of companies are business casual now, but it should be ramped up so that you should feel very, very confident about your professionalism when you walk in the door. If a company is wearing jeans, that doesn't mean you walk in the door in jeans because as a professional, you want to ramp it up. So you definitely don't go all the way to the three-piece suit, but you kind of go one level up. So you'd wear a sport jacket and slacks, or for women, a jacket and pants or skirt, or even a dress and a jacket. So those are kind of things we're talking about body language, we're talking about attire. And the good thing is, if you follow the Moravian rule, which I know you know about, Mike, which is Dr. Moravian did studies about really how we present ourselves, how we're perceived. And the biggest percentage of how we're perceived is visual. So when you look at really 55% of your impression being visual, you got to really make that happen and do all you can to make the best impression visually. And that includes your body language. And then 38% is how you sound. So think about your voice. Think about the actual pitch and tone and pace of your voice. And you know, sales is about connecting. So using your voice to connect is so empowering and so powerful. And in my classes, I talk to people about trying to even match pace or cadence with the people they're speaking with. There's some great studies about how powerful that is. But using that as a tool to really make that connection and also to enhance your image. So using, you know, your body language, your clothing, your voice all makes such a huge, huge impact. And then, you know, bottom line is, after the interview, you should be following up. And that's just great etiquette, whether you're going to a dinner party or whether you're going to a sales call. The follow-up is maybe even the most crucial part of the whole equation, and that's immediately sending out a note or an email, or I actually like to do handwritten notes, and not many people do them, so you're going to stand out in a huge way if you decide to do something actually in writing in the mail.
Absolutely. You and I are two peas in a pod, because my grandmother, and actually I'm having lunch with her today, she always says you can judge a man or a woman by their shoes. Mm-hmm. And I can't stress that enough. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard a rumor that some executives really do make that final hiring decision on the shine of their shoes. But I've always kept my shoes clean. Do you agree with that?
I do. And, you know, you never know what quirk a hiring manager is going to have. Yes. So why not cover all the bases just in case?
I agree. And another thing there, too, is you're mentioning cadence and those types of things, and I'm sure you've heard of this term mirroring, and it's so important to match your prospect or your client or your interviewer and really dial in and be at that, because we've all had those uncomfortable conversations if you have a closed talker or someone that's loud or someone that's not paying attention, and it's so critical to match or mirror that person in those conversations.
Right, absolutely.
What are some things that you're doing to get more exposure to your practice, and how do you generate leads? And you've been doing this for 9 years, so obviously you got a strong following. But in a sales profession, and we're all in sales at the end of the day, how do you generate new leads, or what are some things that you do?
I really believe in networking. You know, the power of the networking is just unbelievable. And the more people who know what you do and know what your capabilities are, the more opportunities present themselves. So I really try to network, and I try to reach out to my network with opportunities for them or just touching base on a regular basis. And I actually like to use LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a really powerful tool for professionals, and many, many of my contacts are linked with me. And so that's really helpful, because I think the more top of mind you are, the better your chances are of getting an opportunity. And so I try to use LinkedIn on a fairly regular basis to update my network about what's happening. And if I am doing a seminar at, say, Unilever, which is a great client, wonderful people, I'm going to go ahead and put that in my LinkedIn update and give a link to Unilever's website, and maybe say something about how they're a really green company, just do something for them, but also give an idea to my network about what I'm really working on, so that if they are thinking about, wow, we need a business etiquette seminar, it might just pop into their mind if they see that I've just done one for Unilever co-op students. And so those are great tools, and I can't tell you how valuable that's been for me as a way to really touch my network, which is not just local, but all over the country. You asked me earlier, where do I sell, or where do I work? It's really all over the country, and so it's hard to see those people on a regular basis, but it's really easy to touch base with them through LinkedIn and through Facebook too. But I use LinkedIn more often for that type of work.
Absolutely, and I'm a huge believer in social media, and that is the future of sales or cold calling, is connections. And I've been speaking on social media now for a year and a half, and when I started, LinkedIn was around 40 million, and I don't know if you know this, but it's 70 million right now. So in a year and a half, they've added 30 million people, and not to stat everyone, but there's 480 million people on Facebook, which makes it the fourth largest country. And also Twitter has 120 million people. My point here is just what Jonna's doing here is reaching out, creating a win-win for her client, and exposing what she's doing. People understand where she is, what she's doing, and she's also helping her client, too, get more exposure. It's just a great thing to leverage social media.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I agree with you that it is the future, and you can't replace the in-person, people seeing you, people actually meeting you, but you can certainly enhance it using the tools that you just described.
Absolutely. And just reaching out to people and making them aware of things. And LinkedIn is on 24/7, and that's what the nice part is. That people can see, she was there. And it's so true when I'm helping people in the sales process. And people don't know what exactly you do until you share with them what you do. And I know that sounds kind of basic, but when you really think about it, it goes back to when I was providing services to attorneys. And I use this example all the time. A lawyer told me that, Mike, I could provide them with a will, and then they get out and get into a car accident right after they leave my office. And they'll call someone on TV because they think that I can't handle a personal injury case. And I guess that always stuck with me is because you never know exactly what people do until they really, really tell you that they can do it. And I know that you've obviously harnessed that by stating that you do speaking, et cetera. You help people out with etiquette, but a lot of people kind of don't share what they do. So.
Right, and I don't know why that is. It makes so much sense to me to give examples and to actually state what's happening in your life in that way, and not to do it in an over self-promoting kind of way, but in an informative way to really stay top of mind, just in case there's an opportunity that's out there.
Absolutely, and we're all human at the end of the day with emotions, and we buy on commonality. We buy on that relationship. We buy on commonality, or we look at, actually I scheduled a call one time from LinkedIn because we were reading the same book. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of neat. She goes, usually I want to see someone as fast as I want to see you, but we're reading the same book. And she was the CEO of a company.
That's so great.
How great is, yeah. I mean, but, you don't know until you tell people what you're doing, and that's what social media to me is just kind of giving quick little updates on things. So. Right,
and I think you do an excellent job with that as well, so you're sort of my role model in some ways on that. You should know that.
Oh, well thank you. That's a very nice compliment.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I don't know if you've checked out Hootsuite, but that's my new favorite, and that is manage my social media life like no tomorrow, and it's so great. So if you check it out, Hootsuite. Are you on that yet?
I'm not. I have to check that out.
Yeah, because you can, and I don't want to. You can put in keywords like etiquette, and
right.
So every time that it's out there in the social media world, you could respond and go, "Hey, notice that you were looking for something on etiquette. Maybe I can help." So it's a way for you to scan the environment in social media and then choose who you want to connect with. It's a very, very powerful tool.
See, I learned something new on this call. That's something I'll check out right away.
Well, that's the whole point of this, and I hope more people, the listeners and people share what we're talking about, because image is everything. And the thank you note, going back to what you state, I am a 1,000% believer in handwritten thank you notes, and that's another grandma thing. Both of them, and I'm still privileged to have both of my grandmothers around. And if you have your grandmothers around still, reach out and say hello today. Just do that. You'll be thankful.
I think that's great. You're lucky that you had that kind of training, and not everybody has that good fortune. So I think it's worthwhile to let people know the value of that.
Exactly. And it's so funny because when I'm helping my clients out with a hiring process of a sales individual, they'll always ask me, Mike, so now what? We like them. I go, honestly, if they don't follow up correctly, just delete. And I say that all the time, because if they're not following up on the job, why would they follow up on prospects and clients? And that's so basic, and I know you share that with your clients too, is just if they're not following up, how are they going to follow up when they're actually on the payroll? They're not going to do it.
Absolutely.
And
I talk a lot about technology etiquette, and that's become a huge growing part of my work. And so we talk about email etiquette and the use of cell phones and BlackBerries, but specifically on email, if people aren't replying to you, then that's sending a message about who they are professionally. And I like to share with people that I deal with people at very high levels in large companies, and they're the ones who are getting hundreds of emails a day. And you know what? They're the ones who are most likely to respond, even if it's a quick note to say, yes, they got the information, which is all I really want and all anybody really wants. And so that is such a small thing, but it makes a huge impression. If people are not replying, not responding, then they're lacking in their professional image, and they don't even realize it.
I 1,000% agree with you. And that is one of the things that I pride myself on. Granted, I probably have my slips, just like anyone else, but the reason people hire me is, Mike, you're responsive. And I can't stress that enough to salespeople, is because if you're not responding, you are already setting an image that they are going to have to manage you and try to give you money. And that's just not it.
No, it's shocking, actually. We're in the process of buying a new car right now, and it amazes me that there are people who will not follow up, who are in the business of selling something, this commodity that you can get anywhere. And so that's a recent sort of experience I've had with salespeople who I'm shocked are still in sales because of that follow-up problem.
I agree, and it's so funny, and it's so basic, and I'm sure everyone's nodding their head, oh, I follow up. Well, here's the truth. 85%, according to a Culpeper study, 85% of salespeople do not follow up. And now follow this through on math, the algorithm here. We all know that there's the 80-20 rule, which I think is going to 90-10. That 20% of your sales force produces 80% of your revenue. But look at that. 15% are actually following up. That's pretty close to 20%. The people that follow up and manage the sales process are successful in selling, and it's that simple. It drives me up the wall, and I just posted this on my blog. It took someone 8 weeks to respond to my inquiry. That's unacceptable. Why would I hire him?
Right.
I want it.
No,
but anyways, we're closing down here, and can you tell the listeners a little bit more about how they can connect with you and kind of the services that you offer, and just close us out here and give a last-minute tip here for the listeners.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I really appreciate you having me on your show. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and I'm excited because my work is primarily in the form of seminars. And people can find out about the seminars that I actually do on my website, which is powerofimage.com. And I do a lot of work with students, and that's students who are entering the corporate world, whether they're still in college, so I work with universities, or if they're in large corporations acting as interns or co-ops. And so large companies are hiring me, companies like Xerox and Unilever and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Bayer. They're hiring me to come in to help their new people really understand what it's like to be a business professional and to help them to acclimate to that kind of environment. And hopefully that will help them for their entire careers. And so the programs that I do are really designed around helping people, not only students, obviously we talked about the need for it across the board, but people who are in business to present the best possible image. So I do business etiquette, dining etiquette for the professional, professional image, and networking. All of those are seminars that I've been doing for the past 9 years that are geared specifically for people in a business setting. And a lot of the people that I work with are accountants, as you noted in my introduction. So that's an industry where more and more people are thinking about ways to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And believe it or not, business etiquette and protocol is one of those key ways that people are making a huge impact on the services that they're selling. So I'm excited. I love what I do. I love working with audiences of all sizes, whether it's 10 people or 500 people. So I do this all over the country. I travel a few times a month, and I couldn't be more passionate about the subject matter. And I love, Mike, that you are equally passionate. So, that makes me excited when people have that same level of enthusiasm about what they do.
Oh, well, thank you. And passion's everything. And for people that are not passionate about what they're doing, try to find something else. I know it's a tough road to figure out, but try to find something else. I mean, it just makes your life happier. So,
right.
Well, I love this conversation, and I wish we had more time, and I'd love to have you on in a couple months and follow up with this. But the value that you deliver is so important because in sales, it's having the right time, showing up on time, looking the part, being the part, and having that etiquette is so critical. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your time out of your busy day, and I encourage all of you to reach out and connect. So I thank you very much again, and I wish everyone good luck on their next sales call.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.